Hello again. I want to start with some simple questions for those viewers who have, or once had, small children. As most of us know, children get all kinds of unaccountable and strange ideas into their heads from time to time. This happens when they are toddlers and it continues through adolescence as well. Teenagers are very prone to weird obsessions and irrational beliefs about everything from pop singers to football stars, religion, flying saucers, or computer games. Let us imagine that your 4-year-old daughter got it into her head that she would rather be a dog than a little girl and started acting like one in the house. A harmless enough little bit of fun, you might think. Would you buy a kennel for her, though, and let her sleep in it in the back garden? Would you let her eat dog food out of the same bowl as an actual dog? Of course not. That would be irresponsible and mad. Suppose that she persuaded herself that the little fairy wings you gave her for Christmas and that she wears all the time were real and gave her the power actually to fly. This is quite an endearing and cute idea. Would you let her test the theory by jumping out of the window? You would not. It's your job as parents to protect her and not let her do things which might harm her. She's the child and you're the adult. What if she started claiming that she was really a boy rather than a girl? Would you allow a doctor to give her powerful drugs which would alter the functioning of her body and could result in her becoming sterile in adulthood and suffering from early onset osteoporosis? Would you take her to Thailand so that she could be surgically mutilated? No? Whoa, transphobia right there. By the way, none of these three examples were made up. My daughter, when she was 3 or 4, honestly thought that she might be a fairy and that her wings became real. A friend's kid used to curl up in a dog's basket and spent more time with the dog at one stage than with her brother and sister. These phases passed. Some children, though, have actually been prescribed powerful puberty blockers, which can have grave effects in later life. And one mother took her son to Thailand to be castrated. For whatever reason, maybe connected with the internet, changing gender is something more and more children are getting keen on. Most of them, without encouragement, would lose interest in all this as they grew up. Think of George in the famous 5 stories who wanted to be a boy. It's a phase that many children go through. The problem now, of course, is that they can read about this all day long on their mobiles and laptops. The internet's full of stuff on transsexuality. This cannot fail to have the effect of making them think about it more and more, and it can become an unhealthy obsession. It's curious that many girls are now taking this up. Girls do tend to go in for things like anorexia, self-harming and so on. Some sites encourage such behaviour. For example, there are what are known as pro-ana sites where girls are encouraged to starve themselves and given handy tips for ways to avoid their parents spotting what's going on. There are also websites which help with self-harming, explaining how to cut your arms and so on without the wounds getting infected. Those websites which encourage youngsters to try and have themselves surgically mutilated are just the same. The problem is that this is all big business now. At one time there was just one gender identity clinic in the whole of Britain at the Charing Cross Hospital. Originally it had been set up to treat homosexuals to try and cure them, but later it branched out into transsexuality. Always, though, the aim was to discourage people from taking the step of changing gender identity, children in particular. Children with a problem of this kind were helped to adjust to being boys or girls, rather than being told they could change if they wished by taking drugs or having surgery. What happened, though, was people spotted a brilliant business opportunity here. The waiting list for NHS treatment, especially for children, were very lengthy. So private clinics began to spring up, and they realised that by offering to help children and adults change sex, they could make a lot more money than they could by discouraging them. Most private gender identity clinics work hand in glove by making referrals to surgeons, endocrinologists, speech therapists, and people providing electrolysis. This is all very expensive and profitable for those involved. Men will need Lord knows how many sessions of electrolysis to remove the hair on their chin, speech therapy to teach them to speak more like a woman, surgery on their Adam's apple, nose jobs, all the rest of it. Then there's all those hormones and puberty blockers to be paid for. This is all before one even begins to think about the actual gender reassignment surgery, or what we used to call sex change operations. There really is no money at all to be made in advising patients not to change gender. It's selling them all these medical procedures which bring in the money for these private clinics. I've said many times before that I'm indifferent about who does what to their own body, and I couldn't care less if people want to have speech therapy or be castrated. It's no business of mine. I can see though why some women are getting a little ticked off about the whole business now, because people who once had penises are insisting on entering as women in sporting events like weightlifting. The thumbnail to this video shows somebody called Laurel Hubbard. This person has been selected for New Zealand's women weightlifting team, despite having been born with a male body. This is a huge advantage for a weightlifter, for it means that the body is formed by male hormones during puberty, giving extra bone and muscle. This is a great advantage for a weightlifter, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if Hubbard actually wins the Olympics. Laurel Hubbard has of course been selected to represent New Zealand at the Olympics. It's an odd situation because it means such people now cannot be refused entry to lesbian bars, women's refuges and clubs, all sorts of places that one time were restricted to women. Any attempt to stop people who are born with penises from getting into places like that is denounced as transphobia. It's a very strange state of affairs that we seem to have reached.